On April 19th, 1989, a young woman was brutally raped and left for dead in New York City's Central Park. Five boys, four black and one Latino, were tried and convicted of the crime in a frenzied case that rocked the city. These young boys became known collectively as the Central Park Five. Their convictions were vacated in 2002 after spending between 7 and 13 years of their lives behind bars. The unidentified DNA in the Central Park jogger case was finally linked to a convicted murderer and serial rapist who confessed. The convictions of the boys, now men, were overturned and they were exonerated. Dr. Salaam was just 15 years old when his life was upended and changed forever. Since his release, Dr. Salaam has committed himself to advocating and educating people on issues of false confessions, police brutality and misconduct, press ethics and bias, race and law, and the disparities in America's criminal justice system. In 2013, documentarians Ken and Sarah Burns released a documentary, The Central Park Five, which told the story of the travesty from the perspective of Dr. Salaam and his cohorts. Dr. Salaam was awarded an honorary doctorate in 2014 and received the President's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016 from President Barack Obama. He was appointed to the board of the Innocence Project in 2018 and released a Netflix feature limited series called When They See Us, based on the story of the Central Park Five, with Ava DuVernay, Oprah Winfrey, and Robert De Niro in May of 2019. Today, Dr. Salaam, member of the Exonerated Five, is an award-winning, motivational, and transformational speaker, thought leader, trainer, New York Times best-selling author and coach. Welcome, Dr. Salaam, and thank you for your work to address disparities in America's criminal justice system. And thank you for agreeing to be this year's keynote speaker. So the first question that we wanted to ask, or I wanted to ask you, is how did your experience as one of the Central Park Five, exonerated Central Park Five, shape your perspective on racial injustice and criminal justice reform?
Oh my goodness. As a member of now the Exonerated Five, you know, my my whole experience was shaped in a way that made me believe that the system was oppressive, that it was corrupt, you know, that if you are a person of color, even though the system says that you're innocent until proven guilty, of course, oftentimes, if not all the times, a black person in particular and a brown person in general is always looked at as being guilty and having to prove themselves innocent. I think about my case often, and the detectives that interrogated us, these detectives were part of a elite detective squad that you could not be a part of unless you had 20 plus years on the job. And so if you can imagine a person, any person having 20 years on any job, they would be a expert, hands down. But this particular job, you could not be a part of unless you had 20 years on the job. And then you could submit your application to be a part of this elite detective squad. What I imagine is that they knew that the confessions that they were receiving, those false confessions from four of my comrades, were completely false. They were completely made up, didn't match anything that was known about the crime scene, but yet they still went full steam ahead. And so as we look at all of the statistical data now, we find things like, they're basing how many jails to build by the time our children are in the third and fourth grade. So what does that mean? That means that it's already rigged against you, that if they can predict future occurrences based on current things, and I'm talking about at such a young age, you're not even, you know, stepping out on your purpose yet. But yet they're trying to give you a position that they need you to participate in that's going to arrest your development.
Mhm. So I've read in your biography that you are a board member for the Innocence Project. So how have these experiences shaped the work that you want to get done through your participation as a board member for the Innocence Project?
As a board member of the Innocence Project, I get the opportunity that speaks life into all of the individuals that I meet, especially from the lowest level, meaning a person that is needing assistance, to the highest level, someone that is looking to use their position, their money, their authority to help in the best way. And I can speak to those experiences in a really impactful way, because not only was I close to the pain, not only was I in pain, you know I now have kind of risen outside of that and made something of my life, so that I can give back, so that I can say, you know what, I know where you are. I was once where you were, and this is our story. So I become an ambassador for our pain. And as a board member, it's so impactful. But part of the work that I do, I believe, is dealing with therapy, that type of psychosocial reality that allows you to be positioned in life so that you can find meaning and value again.
So just kind of adding on to that, you're now a counselor in New York City. So will how does this experience translate into your work as a counselor? It happened in 1989. You said almost 40 years since. How will your position as counselor help you to establish some sort of policies or, um, help the community in a way that this doesn't happen to another group of young men?
The work that I do now as a member of the city council is so important, because, in the community that I come from, there's been this idea, in fact, that if you go into any community of color, especially an impoverished community, and you ask the question, how many of you believe you're going to be dead or in jail before you reach the age of 21? Almost every person will raise their hand. It used to be that this was something that mostly the young boys would raise their hands to, but now we're finding even more young girls are raising their hands to this false reality. As a member of the council, though, and also as a person who is the chair of public safety, I get the opportunity to use all of my experiences and to really speak life into what it is that I would like to see. How can I add more value by giving the community the opportunity to understand why we need the greatest protections for the youngest of us, right? Science has already shown that young people, especially young men, their minds aren't fully developed until they're in their 20s, right? For young women, it might be a lot sooner, but for young men, we're talking about sometimes even 27 before they fully develop and understand the completeness of what's right and what's wrong to do. You couple that with the fact that we have tremendous hurdles that we have to continuously jump over and jump through. As a young person, they're betting on us to fall. They're betting on us to fail. This is one of the reasons why I call it arresting our own development. So as a member of the council, you know, I I used to think that I had made it because I survived. I never went back to prison. I was unjustly convicted, yes. But when people saw me in society, they said, man, that's one of the guys. That's one of the five that went to prison for a crime they didn't commit. And look at him. He's out here. He's doing something with his life. I thought that was it. But now, as a member of the council, young children walk up to me with their parents and tell me, I want to be just like you. This has shifted everything. This has shifted the impossible to finding the I'm possible in that word. And it's so much more impactful for me to be in this position where I give hope to communities that have, in some ways, lost hope, give value back to the communities that have said, man, it's all hopeless and it's over. No, it's not over. We still got more to do and more work to do. And this is that work.
So you're rewriting the narrative for Black men. Uh, and one of the things that's unique about this conference is it serves as a platform for Black men to identify the issues that are important to them, and also to learn about resources and things that will help them to address some of these issues that are important to them. And one of the sessions that we'll be looking at will be mental health. And so, how do you believe that false arrest, wrongful conviction, and incarceration impact mental health for Black men, and what steps can be taken to support their healing and well being?
My goodness, this is the question. This is the crux of the situation, right? Every single one of us is dealing with a mental health issue, whether we are trying to find ways to cope and we know exactly what to do. Therefore, we may go outside and say, it's sunny outside. Let me just experience this. Um, if you have a little bit of money and you can go and eat something that's nutritious for your body, go on a vacation, things like that. These are things that people do to make sure that there's balance inside of the self, right? It's always about balance. The hot button term today, of course, is mental health, but it's all mental health. Every single one of us is dealing with our own mental health. Regarding young men, especially, when you have a wrongful conviction, they're betting on you to never allow yourself to climb out of the abyss of despair. They're hoping that you continue to wallow in that space. And so, therefore, you become a statistic. You become an accident of time. You become a person that says to yourself, I was born a mistake. And therefore, if you believe that, if you would hear that to your mind and your being, you begin to move throughout your life like you're a mistake. The way to combat that is to realize that you were born on purpose and with a purpose. That you were one of over 4 to 500 million options and you made it. And therefore, you are not a mistake. That light that they're telling you to turn down, you have to turn it up. Because the only thing that removes darkness is light. That voice that they're telling you to turn down, that experience, the expression of who you are, they're telling you to turn it down. But God gave you all of that. You don't have to ask permission to live life. You already have it. And it's about knowing that, believing it, and moving in that truth.
Okay. And I guess you might have just answered the last question that I have, because it sounds like during your keynote speech, you're going to have a very powerful message for the audience, particularly Black men. So, would you share with us what you plan to share with the men that attend this conference?
The biggest thing that I plan to share, and this is the crux of life, is that you were born on purpose and with a purpose. That there are no mistakes. That even that thing that you look at as being the worst thing that could have ever happened to you could turn into a blessing in disguise. I would have never thought that the Central Park jogger case would have taken me this far. Being made a poster child for deviance, being front and center where a person who would become a future president of the United States would want to influence the outcome of a case by paying for ad space in local newspapers 2 weeks after we were accused. But the depths of that low signifies how big the comeback is going to be. And even though you don't want to go through what you're going to go through, know that if you understand that you're going to grow through what you're going to go through, you'll be all right.
Very powerful message. And I will say, you just pointed out something. It seems as if, history has come full circle. We had a person who was our president, and
Mhm.
he's running again. So as a councilman, you have a lot of work to do to make sure we don't let him get back in there. And we have a lot of work to do as an institute to get people registered to vote so that our voice does matter and that we remember history so it doesn't repeat itself. So I thank you so much for agreeing to be our keynote speaker for this event. I'm looking forward to your message, and I know that you're going to reach so many people through your participations in this event. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you also for having me.
Thank you.